Hello, I'm Penny Thornton and welcome to my astrology channel. On this video, I'm going to be looking at Gemini for November 2020. Now, if you're used to my videos, you'll know that I really like an in-depth look, and this is certainly an in-depth look at November. But I also like to sort of point things out so that you get a sense of what's going on there, that there aren't things just happening like cosmic voodoo to you, that there's really something going on here. It has a shape, the shape of things to come, and that this is what astrologers like myself look at. And in fact, that's what we're going to be working from as we go through your November monthly. So let me put this one here. And hopefully now you can see a picture of a horoscope. And this is where it all begins. There's Gemini. We always begin at the very beginning, at the first house, first sign, and everything else that's going on in the cosmos, in the solar system, is pointing at, or we see it from the perspective of Gemini. So in general, during the month of November, what we're looking at, because the sun is very important, and the sun will be moving through the area of, well, it's the sixth house. It's the area that's often given a name of work and well-being, which is, sort of rather all-encompassing, isn't it? I mean, there's, what does that mean exactly? And I'm going to tell you what it means. Whenever the sun is in a particular area of the horoscope, it is as though that area of your chart is illuminated. It's time to focus on those things, to harness whatever influences are there, and so that you're working in harmony with the zodiac, or with the, with the planets, so to speak. But it's also a time when things just happen related to that area. But whichever way around it is, the heads up here, looking at where that focus is going to be of great help. So the sixth house, if there is just one word that might fit the sixth house, it would be systems, because they're life systems, health systems, all the things that help our life to have shape and structure. Our daily routine, our kind of daily cycle from getting up to going to bed is a kind of sixth house matter. That's how our day is constructed. And of course, how our health system is going is what we do, whether we are health and fitness nuts and we're always exercising and making sure we eat the right balance of carbs to protein, etc. Or, however we might view our health, when the sun is moving through the sixth house, it's time to really put the health system under the microscope, time to book appointments with dentists and doctors and get a general MOT. And you might find that stuff just happens related to your health, because this is the health of mind, body, and spirit, I have to say, and it will be important to address it during this time that the sun is in the right place. But systems are also, as I've described it, the way your day runs, your daily routine. And this is an opportunity really to make adjustments so that you are more, your days have better shape and you can do more things in them, because that structure is useful and conducive to making things more harmonious and more effective for you. This is also what I call the house of preparation. And why it's preparation? Because the next house on, or the next sign on, is going to be relationships for you. And in fact, the sun will come into the area of relationships on the 21st of November. So the idea of preparation here, during the time the sun is moving through Scorpio, is all about putting in the rules of engagement. If you've just met somebody, and whether that's a working relationship or whether it's a romantic relationship, so important, Gemini, to get the rules of engagement in. Because if we just go along with things nice and easy from the very beginning, it's very difficult to get them to change later on without people getting bent out of shape. So think about the structure and the way you are engaging in this relationship, so that by the time the sun moves through the seventh house, you're off and running. And I think even with a long established relationship, again, a working relationship, or a romantic relationship, a marriage, it's good to review how you interact. So it's like a series of date nights. So you might talk about the relationship. That's a good thing to do in the month of November. Now, there's another very important thing about this month, and that is because of, there's an eclipse coming up, and that comes up at the very end of the month. So, in a way, the idea of preparation is also about, preparing for events that might come towards the end of the month and be really quite powerful. You want to make sure your ducks in a row, you've done all the things that you need to do, you've done all your paperwork, you've got your finances in a good place, you've answered all those calls, you've done everything you should. And then as we come to the end of the month and we've got this random lunar eclipse, you'll be prepared for anything and everything. And I'll take that perhaps a little bit more seriously shortly. What I also want to look at here is that just before we came into November, on the 30th, 31st of October, there was a full moon on this axis, the sun in your 6th house, the moon in your 12th house, conjunct Uranus. So this might have been a very powerful time for you. Things that have happened have made you think about your priorities, your direction, how you feel about certain things. And so in a way, what happens at the end of October has an impact on how November unfolds as well. And because Uranus is such a powerful awakener, such a powerful change bringer, I've kind of put the times of the month where I think the same kind of theme is very present. And so we're going to be looking at here, the 7th of November. We're going to be looking at the 14th of November. We're going to be looking at the 20th of November. And we're going to be, the 17th of November, the 20th of November, and the 27th of November. These are all Uranian flashpoints when things can happen suddenly, goalposts move, you can get epiphanies, things happening suddenly. And if you have those dates in your agenda somewhere, either, this will help you monitor yourself so you won't do things without thinking, and you'll embrace whatever is coming in. So it's all very easy. And, it's our attitude to situations that really, really helps them evolve the way they should. I mean, how a situation, what its outcome is, has a lot to do with our outlook, our mind. So my heads up here is all about that. So let me get to the start of the month when we have Mercury, your ruling planet, the planet of communication, here in the 5th house, which is a very creative area of the horoscope. It's hooking up to Saturn here in the area of shared resources, and that's to do with finances, it's to do with emotions and feelings and sex. So there could be a really important discussion about any one of those things. This area of the horoscope, the 8th house, is a rather taboo area. It's an area we don't like to really talk about very much. We don't like to hang our dirty washing out. And, whether it's talking about sex, whether it's talking about death and wills and legacies, whether it's talking about taxes, whether it's talking about how much money we borrowed, those are all, little scary subjects that we don't want to really talk about with other people. But it will be essentially to talk about one or more of those things as we enter the month of November. You're a logical sign. Your mind is really sharp. And unless, of course, you've got Neptune on your case, we'll talk about that next. But you are a concept person. And so you're very good with finances. A lot of people who work in the financial industry have Gemini very strongly in their charts because you're so good at money. And this is what it requires. Even if you're shaking your head at me right now and saying, no, I'm hopeless with money. It's time to get good with money. And that means talking about it, dealing with it practically, and making very practical decisions. And I have to say, because at the beginning of the month, Mercury is retrograde, it may be that things look a little gloomy, whether that's just generally everything is rather gloomy, or whether you've got some kind of issue and problem and it's got to be tackled. And I believe by the 6th of November, because Mercury will have gone direct on the 3rd, you will have a better chance of sorting out something that's around at the beginning of the month that seems very difficult to resolve. You'll have a much better chance of resolving it as you get to the weekend around the 6th of the month. Now, I am going to talk about Neptune here because it's such an important figure, especially if you have a birthday between about the 8th and 12th of June, and also if you're in your early 40s. The reason being that Neptune is opposition Neptune. Neptune is square Neptune at birth in that era. And the thing about Neptune is that why it's very inspirational. And if you work in the arts or you work in any way where you need a great creative mind, Neptune is brilliant because you come up with ideas from nowhere. It's like a magical experience almost. But in the real world, when you have real decisions to make and real things going on with the material world, Neptune is a problem. So if you've got the Neptune square or you're in those birthdays, Neptune is really in some ways helping you to access your dreams and live in the dream world. It's a problem if you're dealing with reality. And if you're listening to me and you're saying to yourself, I felt kind of directionless. I haven't been able to get a grip on things. They just seem to slip away without, I don't know what's going on. This has never happened to me before. You've definitely got a touch of the Neptunes. So why this is important this month is that Neptune is turning direct, and it does that on the 29th of the month. But as we get closer to that point, the full effects of Neptune are going to be quite present. And so any sense of empathy and compassion and creativity and spirituality and all of that, that's going to be in high focus, and that's going to make you super sensitive, which is lovely. But what it's also going to do is create chaos. So there are a lot of muddles and mysteries around at this time as well. Extra piece of information: Neptune turned direct at the end of June the 23rd, in fact. So if at that point, something in your life you had to put in the pending file was no longer something you could focus on or do or seemed to be in your life, you may find that once Neptune has gone direct and we're somewhere in December, that thing you put on one side comes back. But during the time that Neptune has been retrograding, things have been changing. Your attitude to it, the situation itself has been changing. It's got more nuanced, it's different. So that by the time you come back to look at it again, you might have a very different feeling about it. So keep your options open. Now, a little while ago, I talked about Saturn in the 8th house, and I talked about this area of the taboo, intimacy, sex, all those things that are kind of difficult to, really bring into the light because they're, by their very nature, sort of things we keep underground. Jupiter and Pluto are also meeting in this area for the 3rd time this year. They met on the 5th of April. They met on the 30th of June, and now they're doing so again on the 12th of November. And because this is an area of money, it may be that finally a financial matter is resolved for you. You finally know what you've got. A settlement is settled, or something else about a financial matter now is really now it's done. Whether that turns out to be fabulous for you or quite the reverse, I cannot say. Because remember, all Geminis are sharing this same very important aspect, and it's going to be different for different Geminis. But the idea is that something now resolves itself, and that whatever happens, whether something can't go forward anymore, or whether you've got the thumbs up and everything is, moving on apace, there is opportunity in there, whether you get that opportunity right now, or because the opportunity comes later because of what goes at this time. I promise you'll be able to look back in this mid-November period of 2020, and you're going to be able to trace a lot of good things that happen to you in the future from this point. Now, also at this point in the month, the 14th to be exact, Mars in Aries turns direct. And Mars is the principle of action and drive, but it's a fairly aggressive planet. And because it's been angling this trio in Capricorn, you've seen what's happened on the world stage. We've got so many protests going on. We've got violence, upset, argument, aggravation. And that's definitely been this relationship between Mars and these planets here. So this will have affected your life again, now it may be to do with a business, to do with an enterprise. It may be to do with a relationship or something else in your life, or it may be back in the world of finances again. So this is an important date because, again, from the 14th, we're now moving forward. We're not going backwards over anything. And gradually, this relationship between Mars and this group of planets here, which has been the background to why 2020 and the coronavirus has been so unsettling and difficult, that's going to start to no longer be applicable. May take till the end of December before it fully disappears, but you can look to that date and see that that's going to be an important watershed, something moving from that point. So last but not least, I must look at this eclipse. On the 30th of the month, the sun in your opposite sign opposes the moon in your own sign of Gemini. It's a lunar eclipse. Now, on May the 22nd this year, there was a new moon in Gemini. The sun was conjunct the moon. It wasn't an eclipse, but it was near the nodes where eclipses happen. So it was a pretty powerful new moon. And the relationship between that new moon and this full moon eclipse on the 30th of November is very important. Something that began at the end of May is now at closure and completion time. And so you could see a deal is signed, it's done, which is a good thing. It sounds good. And especially in the area of relationships, it may be that you've decided to make a relationship permanent, whether it's a working relationship, your relationship with a company, or whether it's something more to do with romance and marriage. Here we go. This is it. This is now done and dusted. But it could also mean something is at an end. So maybe something that began can't go any further. You've realized this project, this alliance, this romance, it's no longer viable. And so that is why this eclipse sort of marks a time of endings. But throughout next year too, we're going to have eclipses on this Gemini Sagittarius axis. So we are looking at a very important period of your life. And if you have your nodal axis on the Gemini Sagittarius axis, this becomes super important, almost as though aspects of your destiny are being fulfilled. So this is something to think about at the end of November, but also as a general theme as we go through 2021. So let me come back into the room. And, you know, one of the functions, as I said before, when I began, is this idea of looking at the shape of things to come, because that's our heads up. We know what the weather is. We know we have a map. And with a map, we have some sense of how to go about our life and how to receive some of the experiences that happen to us. And I mean, it's so important. Life goes on. I mean, we forget that when we're in some situation which seems as though it's the end of the world. Oh, that's happened. You know, we think life will never be the same again. But of course, it won't be the same again, but it will go on. And we need to remember that these sort of things, these primary experiences in our lives, are great character builders and great destiny makers. So thank you for watching, and I look forward to speaking to you on your next monthly and also on my twice monthly during every month. Bye for now.